So we are going to talk about hips today. I love talking about hips, and so hip mobility is something that I'm greatly passionate about. So today we will have this little short video, kind of a way to self-assess hip movement and anything that might be going on in your hips, and then giving you a couple things that really I love to share with clients when working with hip mobility. So everybody is not the same when it comes to hip flexibility, hip mobility. I have really tight hips, and through yoga, through asana, through posture, I have been able to make them a little bit more flexible. That being said, there were things that I probably shouldn't have done early on in my yoga journey, or my yoga asana journey, in my postures, that I wish I hadn't maybe done, and I know now, so that's why I'm making this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to see for any kind of impingement in our hips. So impingement, what does that mean? So sometimes the muscles around the hips can, when they move, squeeze on a nerve. And it might feel like, oh, I'm getting stretched there, but it probably isn't. It's probably squeezing the nerve. And that is the case for me, which I'll show you on my right hip. My left hip is impingement free. But I want to make sure that you have this awareness, because the hips are very important, and hip surgeries are on the rise. The hip is the home of the strongest ligament in the human body, so we want to make sure that we keep them happy and healthy. So first, for our little self-assessment, if you'd like, lying down onto the ground or onto a mat if you have, and then stretching out the legs just for a moment, maybe noticing how that feels. Maybe you're like, oh, I feel my lower back, I feel my shoulders. Maybe you notice also the natural tendency of your hips. So I just feel this really good turn out. So I have this natural turn out. Here you might have a turn in, maybe the feet go in, maybe they stay just straight, but I have a very natural turnout as you see my toes turn out. And then whenever you're ready, starting with whatever leg you want to start with, bring the knee towards your chest. And you can grab onto the knee. So I'm starting with my right, and as you can see, I'm bringing it towards my chest, but what you can't see is I feel a pinch. I feel a pinch right here. So that is the impingement. That is what I worked through, which was not the best idea. So if you feel the pinch like I do, let the knee fall out to the side, and you'll start to feel that when it doesn't have a pinch. So right now, no pinch. I can even bring the knee closer, and it feels pretty good. Now, how to work with this little impingement, how to work with the pinch. So we're not trying to go past that edge ever. And sometimes that impingement goes down to my knees, down to my ankles, and does all kinds of funky things. So what I like to do is bring it back to center and just give it a little bit of straight and bend. I can even let it rest on the mat and just bringing it in and out. Give it a little bit. Working it a little. I can feel a little bit of a click. It's just slight. And I'm going to let it back down. So I'm going to now test the left side. So go ahead and bend the other knee, whatever other knee you're going to do. And then this side, I don't have that impingement. I can bring it all the way in. There's no sensation. But if for you there is, remember, bring it out to the side. Just going as far as you don't feel that pinch. And then just to help it loosen a little, that nerve gliding, feel free to bend and extend. Just noticing what's going on there. And whenever you feel ready, you can straighten that leg back out. Just take a moment to breathe here, because we're about to get onto our hands and knees, going into the second little assessment so that you can see or notice what's going on in your hip. So when you're ready, maybe rolling onto your stomach so we can come onto all fours. And so from here, we're going to come into a low lunge. So I'm going to start with my right, because as we know, my right has impingement. So I'm going to bring it here. When I come up into a lunge, so you can bring your hands onto your knee, and then maybe you want to reach forward or start to bend the knee over the foot. You can see I can do this with ease. But what you can't see is I feel the pinch. So what should I do? Back off. I should not go past that limit. Stay here. Take your breaths here. Even if the mobility is there, I feel the pinch. Back off. And we'll try on the other side. So, I'm going to switch it up. Again, bringing my hand onto my knees. And then here, I'm going to also pay attention to that impingement on the right. So if I start to lunge forward, I can feel the impingement still on the right. So what should I do? Back off. I can go a little further than I can on the other. So this would be upright, and this would probably be the safest. But if I want to just a little bit, and I still don't feel that pinch on this side, so I will stay here. Again, as I said before, be careful because I do have the mobility, and you might too. But I feel the pinch, so back off. Deep breaths. And then whenever you feel ready, release it back down. So I can sit on my heels with relative ease. If there's stuff going on in your hips, probably won't feel the best to have this knee flexion and the ankle extension. It might feel better to sit all the way down. It might feel really weird to have cross legs. Your knees might be up high, so you might want to straighten them out. Give them a nice little shake. So we'll come into just a couple little hip mobility exercises I love to do. So one of them, we will do a seated windshield wiper, and we'll move that into a sits bones walk. So go ahead and make your legs a tent. So I'm going to have my feet to be about shoulder width apart, and my knees are bent, and as you can see, my legs make a tent. And then from here, letting the hands support you in any fashion that feels grounding, that feels appropriate, that feels accessible. And then from here, this is where we start the windshield wiper. So just letting the knees fall to one side. And just notice for a breath or two the sensations you feel, where you feel them in the legs, in the knees, in the hips. And then whenever you feel ready, let them come back through your center and go to the opposite. Again, a breath or two, just noticing the sensations, where you feel it, the glutes, the hips, the knees, the ankles. And then when you feel ready, coming back to center. And then from here, we're going to add the fluidity. So it's important to go at your own pace now. So letting the knees go from side to side. You can stop through at the center and let it go. You might notice that you are kind of walking forward on your sits bones. So you might want to push yourself back. And just noticing those sensations. If you wanted to go directly from side to side, feel free. Again, remember that you are kind of walking forward, so you want to readjust. And just notice how each feels. I particularly like to stop in the middle, but you might feel something different. And then when you feel ready, allow yourself to come back to center. Good. And we're going to go all the way back to the back of your mat now. And then from here, this is where we're going to come into that sits bone walk. So it's a little bit more challenging than our seated windshield wiper. But it's the same kind of concept. This time, so we start same way, but we're going to use our hands in a different manner. So whenever you're ready, let the knees fall to one side, let the hands follow, and then find a little bit of extension in the spine. And whenever you feel ready, coming back to center. And then, again, letting them fall to the opposite. Let the hands come down, a little bit of extension in the spine, and back to center. And continue at your own pace. So you might really like to stay in one side and breathe, or you might really like to go through the whole motion. Just notice what feels best in your body, and as you notice, I'm walking forward on my sits bones, as you will too. Just notice how that feels. Deep breaths. You can inhale, coming back to that neutral or that center. Exhale. Or maybe you want to try it differently. Exhale, coming back. And inhale, really expanding the chest. Just notice what feels right for you. Feel free to explore. I'm not using my hands as much, but you can definitely use them. If you wanted to challenge yourself a little bit more with no hands, then go ahead and don't let the hands fall on the ground. Open them up. And back to center. And open. And then back to center. So, if your hips are still feeling pretty loose and mobile for today, we'll do one more little hip mobility exercise that is quite difficult. So please be careful. We're going to come all the way back. And this is a different walk. This is a pigeon walk. I'm going to use the blocks at first so that you can see how to do it with support. So if you have 2 blocks, go ahead and get them. If not, books, anything that's pretty, that has this kind of tall height and is stable. And then from here, what we'll do is let one block be on each side of the mat. We're going to come up and then let them come in front. A little bit in front. I'm going to go back a little bit more so you can see. And so from here, I'm going to cross my knee over the other. And then I'm going to walk the block out. And then I'm going to cross the other knee over. So I'm going to try to not let the foot touch the mat. So letting it come up and over. And walk the block and up and over. Be careful. As you can see, I almost took my hand off the block. Being careful. And then we're going to go backwards too. So it's that other movement. And then walk the block in. And crossing back. And crossing back. And crossing back. And go ahead and uncross. Good. So it takes a little bit of practice to get used to that. But as you get used to it, you can do it with the hands without the blocks, or you can even try without the hands. And going backwards is way more difficult, so be careful there. And then whenever you feel like you've had enough of hip mobility movements, then feel free to go ahead and sit back down, maybe coming into a soft diamond, not so much with the feet close to the groin, but just allowing for the back side of the hips to really get a little bit of a release. This is a great place for a bolster. You can bring the blocks underneath. Just noticing how you feel. I have always had this impingement, and I also have some piriformis issues, but this lovely diamond shape and feeling free to just let gravity take over has really helped with managing not only pain, but not having any injury, and really in the last 5 years not having the pain. And whenever you've had enough, coming back up. And I wish you luck on your happy hip journey, and hopefully these exercises and that little assessment help you in keeping your hips healthy and happy.